I've realized I can't tell my story. Not really. Not the whole thing. Every time I try, people look away. Their eyes shift, their bodies stiffen, and the conversation dies out. Friends can handle small pieces of my life, the kind you can dress up as sad anecdotes or quick jokes. But the full truth, the raw version, it makes people uncomfortable, sometimes even scared. And maybe I understand why. Because even I can barely believe I lived through it. But this is my story. It has been sitting inside me for years, clawing to get out. So maybe the only place I can really put it is here, where I don't have to see the looks on people's faces when I speak. My childhood wasn't really a childhood, at least not the way most people picture it. There were no carefree summers, no family vacations, no safety. My earliest memories are clouded with confusion and pain. I was molested when I was very young. It wasn't just a moment, not just one incident I could block out or pretend didn't happen. It was ongoing, something that followed me like a shadow. I didn't understand it fully, not then, but I knew it was wrong. I knew I felt dirty, ashamed, terrified. Children aren't supposed to carry secrets like that, but I did, and it shaped everything that came after. When I finally gathered the courage to speak up, I thought it would be the end of it. I thought someone would protect me. I thought my words would matter. But when I told people what had been happening, I was met with doubt. They didn't believe me. They looked at me like I was lying, like I was making up stories to get attention. I tried again. I begged them to listen, and when they still didn't believe me, I forced myself to go into detail, things that no child should have to describe out loud. Only then, when I stripped myself of all dignity, when I said the things that made everyone in the room deeply uncomfortable, did some people finally believe me. But by then it was too late. The damage of their disbelief had already sunk in. Meanwhile, the world around me was collapsing. My parents were already far gone into meth. It wasn't recreational, it wasn't something they dabbled in. It consumed them, swallowed up every ounce of responsibility, every trace of love they might have had left to give. Our house wasn't a home, it was chaos. Arguments, drugs, the kind of neglect you can't put into words. Eventually, the law caught up to them. My parents went to prison. Just like that, whatever fragile version of family I had known shattered. My sisters and I were packed up and sent to live with our grandparents. People like to imagine that when a child is sent to live with grandparents, it's safe, it's healing, it's a chance for stability. That wasn't my reality. Living with my grandparents was just another version of survival. My Uncle Doug was around, and he saw me not as a child who needed protection, but as someone he could control. He introduced me to meth when I was only 14 years old. 14. I didn't even fully understand what the drug was, what it would do to me, how it would take over my brain and body. But it hooked me fast. Meth became the only thing that could quiet the noise in my head, the pain in my chest, the memories that wouldn't stop replaying. It gave me relief, but it also chained me down to something that would take years to escape. I knew it was wrong. I knew what Doug was doing to me was wrong. I knew being strung out at 14 wasn't normal. I tried to get help. I went to DHS in Iowa and told them what was happening. I told them about the drugs, about my uncle, about the things that were destroying me. But they didn't listen. To them, I was just another problem kid, a troubled child with a messy story that didn't fit neatly into their paperwork. They saw me as unreliable, too broken to take seriously. And so nothing happened. I was dismissed, ignored, left in the same situation that was killing me. Eventually, the system decided I wasn't just a kid with problems, I was a problem. And their solution was to send me away. I was sent to Clarinda Academy. If you've never heard of it, it was a place where they shipped off kids like me, kids the world didn't know what to do with. It was supposed to be a school, a place for rehabilitation, but it was really just another prison with different walls. My teenage years, the years when most kids are figuring out who they are, discovering freedom, preparing for the future, were spent locked inside a military-style institution. Life at Clarinda was about obedience, orders, structure. Wake up, line up, march, eat, train, repeat. On the outside, it might have looked like discipline, like we were being molded into better people. On the inside, it was survival. You learned quickly who to trust, who to avoid, and how to hide your vulnerabilities. Weakness wasn't allowed, not by the staff and not by the other kids. I learned to keep my head down, to do what I had to do to get by. But inside, I was still that same broken child, still carrying secrets, still addicted, still lost. By the time I left Clorinda, I wasn't really a teenager anymore. I had spent the years that should have defined me locked away, shaped by trauma and rules instead of experiences and growth. I didn't come out healed. I came out hardened. And the world I returned to hadn't changed. It was still filled with temptation, with drugs, with the echoes of my past. I carried the weight of everything with me: the abuse, the disbelief, the addiction, the institutions. Sometimes I look back and wonder how I survived it, how I made it past those years when everything seemed stacked against me. There were so many times I thought I wouldn't, so many nights I lay awake thinking maybe it would be better if I didn't wake up. But I did. I kept waking up day after day, even when I didn't want to. That's my childhood. That's my story, at least the version of it I can tell here without watching someone's face twist in discomfort. It's messy, it's painful, and it's not the kind of story people want to hear. But it's mine. And for the first time, I'm laying it out, not in pieces, not in fragments, but as it really was. When I left Clorinda Academy, I thought maybe life would finally start to feel like it belonged to me. I thought the world outside would be different, that somehow walking away from those locked doors and strict routines would mean freedom. But it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like being dropped into a storm without any shelter. I had been shaped by years of survival, and survival doesn't teach you how to live. It only teaches you how not to die. The streets felt strange, both familiar and foreign. Everything looked the same, but I didn't feel like the same person who had left. My friends had grown up, gone on with their lives, started relationships, jobs, plans for college. I was still stuck in that 14-year-old body that had first tasted meth, that had been dismissed by DHS, that had been broken by people who were supposed to care for me. Inside, I was still frozen in that moment of betrayal, and no matter how many years passed, I carried it all with me. The addiction followed me, of course. Meth wasn't something I just left behind at Clorinda. It had woven itself into me, become my crutch, the only thing that dulled the endless noise inside my head. I'd tell myself I'd stop, that I'd quit, that this time would be different. But then the cravings came, the shaking, the memories that clawed at me when I was sober, and I'd fall back into it. Each time I swore it was the last, each time I hated myself more for not being able to control it. People think addiction is about weakness, about making bad choices over and over. But when you've been using since you were 14, when it was introduced to you not as a choice, but as survival, it doesn't feel like a decision anymore. It feels like a sentence. I tried to find normalcy, whatever that even meant. Jobs came and went. Relationships started and ended before they could get deep because I didn't know how to let people in without scaring them away. Every time I opened up, even just a little, it was like watching someone slowly step back from me. Their faces would change. Their eyes would say, "This is too much." So I learned to keep most of it locked inside. I became good at pretending, at telling only the safe versions of my story, the kind that didn't make people flinch. I was always editing myself, hiding the ugly truths. But hiding it didn't make it go away. The hardest part was trust. I didn't trust anyone, not really. How could I? My parents had chosen meth over me. My uncle had given me the same poison and called it care. DHS had shrugged me off like I was just a problem. And the academy had trained me to obey, not to heal. Every adult who should have protected me had either hurt me or turned their back. So when people said, "You can trust me," I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask them where they were when I was a child begging for someone to listen. But instead, I just nodded, kept my mouth shut, and carried my secrets a little longer. Still, part of me wanted something better. As much as I was drowning, I didn't want to sink forever. There were nights when I'd sit awake, staring at the ceiling, and imagine a different version of myself. A version who had never been touched, never been given drugs, never been